Michael Hainsworth. 5 years from now, Bay Street is going to look very different. Artificial intelligence is already moving from experiment to infrastructure, changing how investment teams process data, analyze news, generate ideas, and stress test your portfolio. And as AI becomes capable of doing more of the work traditionally handled by junior analysts, it could reshape not only how investment decisions are made, but who makes them, and how the next generation learns the business. Bring this down to the individual investor for me. 5 years from now, what should distinguish a great advisor or portfolio manager from an average one if everyone's got access to AI?
To be relevant, you're going to have digital and AI tools available, but I think they'll be commoditized. What still distinguishes the great investment professional is back to investment acumen, critical judgment, ability to take appropriate risks. The best advisors will still be the ones who can form relationships of trust, create plans, engage with clients, and provide proactive advice that meets their needs. AI is just going to help how you do it, not replace the need for those key human traits.
Dynamics' Dan Yungblut argues investment teams in the AI era are still going to compete on many of the same things they do today: judgment, investment acumen, appropriate risk-taking, and the ability to understand and connect with clients. The difference is that increasingly powerful technology will sit beside them. So today I want to discuss with you how AI is evolving on Bay Street and what it means for investors with advisors and those going it alone. And ultimately, what the investment industry could look like 5 years from now. But first, don't let headlines derail your retirement plan. Markets drop, interest rates change. A CEO says something alarming on television. Suddenly doing nothing can feel like the riskiest thing you can do. But before reacting, ask yourself this: has your financial goal changed? Chances are it hasn't. The key to separating information from actionable information. If you're investing for retirement 10, 20 years from now, today's headline may matter to the markets without mattering to your plan. If you don't know the answer to my first question, here are 3 more you should ask yourself or your advisor to figure it out. 1. Has my investment timeline changed? 2. Has my tolerance for risk changed? Or 3, has something fundamentally changed about the investments I own? If the answer to all 3 is no, your portfolio may not need to change either. This doesn't mean ignoring the news. The days of set it and forget it investing are over. Markets evolve, economies change, and sometimes portfolios do need adjusting. But making a change because your financial circumstances have changed is very different from making one because you're anxious. Headlines are about what's already happened. Your investment plan is about where you want to be years from now. Successful investing often means knowing which one deserves your attention. Let's start with where we are today. When you look across Bay Street, how far has AI actually moved from experimentation phase to day-to-day investing?
I'd say we've seen enough at this point with confidence to say that AI will be one of the seminal transformational technologies we've seen alongside the internet and others. It'll transform investment processes, how we do our job, and the types of skills that will be important on investment teams to succeed. Now, no one knows how it's going to evolve. If we have this conversation in 5 years from now, we could be talking about ways AI has evolved in ways we didn't expect. We could be talking about quantum computing as even more transformational. Conversation for another day. We don't know exactly how it's going to evolve, but there are things we can say. Investment teams will still be competing, active managers, on investment acumen, critical judgment, ability to take appropriate risks. Investment advisors will still be competing on ability to form relationships of trust with clients, understand their needs, create comprehensive plans that evolve to market conditions, and offer proactive advice that, if there's client instincts that may be counterproductive. So human plus machine is going to provide better outcomes. So that's how it's going to evolve. Now, in terms of where we're at currently, most Bay Street firms have made AI tools available, a mix of off-the-shelf external tools, external internally developed tools. And so those are available. So certainly AI is being used day to day. However, tool availability is not what matters, it's adoption.
Well, let's talk about, high frequency data. Let's talk about news analysis, quantitative screening, idea generation, portfolio stress testing. These are areas where AI can work very well at scale. Which of these are proving most transformational right now, though?
I wouldn't say it's one area. So we find it helpful to think about separate qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis. So the AI large language models are very good at digesting documents, qualitative information. Where people are already reading financial reporting, digesting news flow in their process to help inform it, that's intuitive. That's already been very low-hanging fruit productivity. That's been transformational even for your mid-stage adopters. So it's what we're already doing more efficiently. Can AI and qualitative information provide new insights we weren't already getting? We'll see. So far, the transformation has more been it'll increase because you're more efficient. It'll open up the ability to look at more opportunities and hopefully drive alpha that way. On the quantitative side, up until, say, the most recent generations, the AI models were not very good at math or calculations. That's changing.
I hope that's changing.
Yeah, they can start automating models. I think you can start to rely on it a bit more. So quantitative tools like doing a screen for new investment ideas that you do more work on, that's available. More sophisticated portfolio construction, being more deliberate about it. So looking for patterns, risk, quantitative analysis, that's available now. It's largely been incremental in a way. Where it's really going to be transformational on that side is that the types of portfolio managers and analysts that were using quantitative analysis historically needed some programming skills, really technical skills. AI is very powerful and it can make those tools available, democratized. And so there's a lot more portfolio managers that weren't historically using that type of analysis that will be able to unlock insights and probably be enhance alpha, enhance portfolio construction in ways they hadn't previously.
So if AI can increasingly build a model, maybe run a screen, summarize information, what does the investment professional have to understand about the assumptions underneath the machine's work before it can trust the output?
So fundamentally, I think people need to understand AI engines are probabilistic. If you ask the same AI engine to rerun the analysis, same inputs, you're going to get slightly different answers. If you ask different AI engines the same query with the same inputs, you could get very different answers. You ask it next week with slightly different evolution of stats, you could get dramatically different outcomes. AI is not an absolute source of truth. It's an input. It has biases. It can hallucinate, make mistakes. It can often lack the full context of what you're looking for. You have to be very careful about the sources it's using. So if we take our off-the-shelf consumer AI engines, they don't have access to a lot of authoritative investment research, historical market data that could be extremely important to help inform the output of those models. So there are a variety of limitations. We look at it, again, you got to be very careful. It's an input into your process, but there's got to be a human in the loop to overlay critical judgment and really assess the output.
Tell me about that human in the loop, though. This feels a lot like my early career in radio, where the bean counters were worried that the DJ would offend someone and that would affect ratings. Ratings affects revenue. Therefore, stick to just time and temperature. Just tell us the time, tell us the temperature, tell us Phil Collins is coming up next. And it raised a generation of broadcasters who didn't know how to be personalities. And that led to even worse outcomes within the industry. Who really listens to radio anymore when you've got your phone with everything you'd ever want to hear? So what about the career development problem that gets buried in AI? If AI automates a junior analyst's grunt work, the work for which people like yourself had to do it, you had to learn, make mistakes, develop judgment. How does Bay Street create the next generation of senior investors if the junior guys aren't doing the work because AI is?
And this is the dilemma investment teams are dealing with. And so the way we think about it, to your point, inefficiency is an important way to learn. You make mistakes, you dig through information, learn what's important and what's not. You have to waste a bit of time to do that. You have to understand how to build a model from scratch. There are grunt work, those will be automated. Our prevailing assumption right now is that we're going to have to be deliberate about development. So if we want to build an investment team to last, we have to think about our talent pipeline, which means we're going to have to invest the resources to allow our junior talent to build a model from scratch, to dig through financial reporting and waste a bit of time to really develop that knowledge, make connections, even though we don't need that output anymore. So that's a development of resources, and we think that's important. The other implication could be that for junior analysts, we're taking away the grunt work, which means the expectation they migrate to more value-added judgment and making connections, because they're not wasting time on that, could be a lot faster. So the funnel could be a lot harsher. And, we'll see if that accelerates the development of analysts. But at the very least, we're going to have to be very deliberate about investing resources, giving them the time to be inefficient.
So AI isn't simply making investment teams faster. It's changing what the job itself looks like. The ability to gather and process information becomes less valuable as the information becomes easier to obtain. The premium shifts towards understanding what the data means, questioning the assumptions behind the model, and applying judgment to the answer. But AI isn't only changing the professionals managing the money, it's also changing what investors themselves can access. I want to talk about what investors with advisors should now expect from those advisors and how self-directed investors should think about putting AI to work themselves. You've told me that advisors triple down on digital engagement while maintaining the human connection. What does a genuinely AI-enabled advisor experience look like from the client's point of view?
Whether it's investment teams or advisors, to be relevant going forward, you will have to be comfortable and adopt digital and AI tools. I do think they are going to be commoditized, though. So clients will have a reasonable expectation that onboarding an agentic AI digital solution will streamline that dramatically. The amount of effort for the client to really the onboarding process will be a lot more streamlined. But even after onboarding, ongoing, the ability to access information about your portfolios in real time will be a lot more powerful, because you can now take a couple of portfolio data at month end, generate a podcast or commentary or different information about that would have taken a lot more work for an advisor in the past. So it should empower clients with more information so that your engagement with advisors are no longer about information. They're about understanding needs, things that aren't in the, just the documents and facts, and really understand their needs, evolve with their life cycle and changing conditions, and really have those proactive conversations to help them stick to a plan as market conditions change. It allows you to focus on that human element, less on administration.
What about a self-directed investor? I can imagine AI suddenly offers something that looks like a personal analyst, a financial assistant. Where can it make genuinely someone a better investor, and where does it create false confidence?
Yeah, and I think this is really important. I actually think, you didn't want radio hosts to be mechanical weather reporters. You should want your AI to be a mechanical weather reporter. And why I say that? So where you have information, where you're trying to gather information to help you make decisions, AI can absolutely enhance what you're doing there. So gather a wider range of information sources, do it more efficiently, compare, contrast two options. But that should be an input into the DIY investor's process, because AI, back to our earlier points about limitations, about hallucination, lacking full context, can it really provide you a fulsome answer that meets all your needs? That's going to be very cautious. I would just consider its output as an input. And there could be examples where I give it a bunch of information. There could be important questions or additional pieces of information that could change the recommendation from an AI engine. Is it necessarily going to ask that, or do you know whether or not it's missing that? I think if you maintain oversight and it's just an input into your process, you're better off with that outcome and overlaying your critical judgment. Outsourcing that entire process, you're opening up the risk that there are gaps in its knowledge, hallucination, is it really providing a fulsome information. There's also the risk of spurious precision.
What do you mean by that?
If you're an analyst, you understand that a 1 penny change in your discounted cash flow valuation shouldn't result in a whole bunch of changes to portfolios. Like that change isn't material. An AI engine could provide very different recommendations depending on slight changes. You got to make sure that you're not taking its output as gospel, especially when it provides you portfolio quantitative recommendations, that the recommendations are robust to changing conditions.
So when an investment advisor adopts AI, what are we really talking about here? Is this just a software package kind of thing, or is there a lot more behind the scenes within any given organization that needs to take place to ensure that AI is providing the investor the appropriate information?
So up until now, a lot of our AI initiatives were focused on getting the right tools available. And I think those tools, like I said, you're gonna have them available to be relevant, but what really matters is adoption. And so going forward, it's going to be crucial for firms to invest not in just continue to develop tools, but training and hand-holding, dedicate a lot of resources to really helping their mid and late stage adopters really drive these tools day to day. And until we get that, it's not really going to transform our workflows the way it could. And the one point actually of interest for, which might be helpful in our experience, you might expect that our early and stage adopters, power users, are our youngest professionals. We've seen no correlation between age and tenure or technical abilities and who are early stage adopters. All it takes is the willingness to invest time, experiment with these tools. They're so powerful and they can help you transform. So anyone at any career stage, AI is certainly available. You just have to invest the time.
Yeah, and you want within any given organization that deploys AI to have not only the early adopters, but the evangelists who can drag the late adopters kicking and screaming into the 21st century.
Yeah, in our experience, absolutely. Those early adopters, the evangelists, are helpful in showing the art of the possible. Here's what worked for me, so no one else has to start from scratch. They can build on that and tweak it for their own needs. But we're finding that very powerful.
I had a conversation with a chief technology officer of one of the biggest companies in this country who, well, have to remain nameless, and they were mortified to learn that the juniors within the organization were adopting AI and super happy to do so, and doing little tests, doing little experiments, and uploading client information to an AI algorithm, figuring out what it was doing, outputting the data, passing it around the organization, and this person almost had a fit because of the privacy implications of doing that with client data. When you're self-directed as an investor, just because you don't have a large organization to be concerned about, just the idea of dragging and dropping my folder of tax information, investment information, and all that kind of stuff up into a nebulous AI absolutely freaks me out.
And it should. Look, enterprises like ours and across Bay Street spend a lot of time with their AI tools to make sure they're adopting enterprise versions. And it's really key about this privacy issue. And the enterprise versions make sure if you upload information or ask it queries, it's not going out to train the model. It can't be accessible by others. That's the important distinction. As a self-directed investor, if you take the off-the-shelf models, upload all your personal information, there's no guarantee that it can't be accessible to others. It's now part of the training of that model. There are huge privacy concerns.
Yeah, the idea that some people are finding that if you just go to Google and start punching in random keywords, that people's private chat GPT conversations are being made public, that in and to itself ought to give us reason to pause.
If you upload your information, you got to assume it's potentially public. And we pay a premium for enterprise versions for that reason.
For investors, the opportunity isn't simply access to information. AI can filter that information, analyze it, and potentially help both advisors and self-directed investors ask better questions. But sophisticated tools don't automatically produce sophisticated investment decisions. And all of this raises the biggest question of our conversation. Where is AI taking us? If AI continues to automate research, expand the capabilities of investment teams, and change what investors expect from their advisors, what does Bay Street actually look like 5 years from now? So let's jump ahead 5 years. Walk me through the typical investment team on Bay Street of 2031. What are the humans doing? What's the AI doing? How is the division of labor different in 5 years versus today?
So it's, gathering information, digesting financial reporting, building a model, scanning news flow. That can all be curated, customized, and streamlined for you. So a lot of those tasks are automated and really taken out of the hands of your junior analysts. The division of labor is value add critical opinion, meeting with management teams, engaging with stakeholders, understanding all the inputs that's not in the numbers, forward looking. That's where you focus your time. And so you can unpack and break down the investment process in different ways that were previously impossible. And so that streamlines and really focuses on the critical analysis. So within a team, you have investment professionals. The role's a bit different. You also have different roles on the investment team that will be crucial. And so you will have, technical expertise in AI, prompt engineering, ability to digest data, make it available in the right format to your investment professionals. That's important. Crucially, though, the way we look at it is a team needs both skills, but not everyone else on the team has to have those skills. So 5 years ago, we thought everyone might have to be a programmer. But the way the tools work now, they're so powerful. As long as the team has that, everything's available in the right format, investment professionals can leverage these in the right way. So 5 years from now, we will still put a premium on investment acumen, deep knowledge of financials, company business fundamentals, like the really investment talent. That's going to be just as important. You just have other people on the team that help supplement that with the tools.
I think back to our father's era of investing and, sitting there with the morning report on business section or the Wall Street Journal. And now we live in an era, where information is basically free. It sounds like what you're telling me is that it's now the insight and the judgment is where people are going to add value. And 5 years from now, it's going to change who succeeds on Bay Street and who doesn't.
I'm not sure that's true. Again, I go back to the mix of roles. If you look right now and you have someone with a ton of investment knowledge and a little bit of AI acumen, ability to use the tools effectively, write a prompt, or someone with a ton of AI knowledge, a little bit of investing knowledge, the former, the investment professional is still going to win out, is still going to be crucial for an investment team to succeed. So ability to engage with corporate executive teams, pull out the right information, to take appropriate risks. That is still important. So domain expertise is still going to be what drives it. Now, the AI experts will be more important on teams. They can have successful careers, but it's not going to replace the need for senior investment talent. They'll both be important, but I don't know that your senior investment teams are still not going to be led by that seasoned professional that's gone through the ranks.
Bring this down to the individual investor for me. 5 years from now, what should distinguish a great advisor or portfolio manager from an average one if everyone's got access to AI?
To be relevant, you're going to have digital and AI tools available, but I think they'll be commoditized. What still distinguishes the great investment professional is back to investment acumen, critical judgment, ability to take appropriate risks. The best advisors will still be the ones who can form relationships of trust, create plans, engage with clients, and provide proactive advice that meets their needs. AI is just going to help how you do it, not replace the need for those key human traits.
So you're still going to have an expense account so you can take me out to lunch at Earl's, right?
No more than once a week, but we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Thank you for your time and insight. Great speaking with you.
My pleasure.
5 years from now, AI will be embedded throughout the investment process, analyzing data, generating ideas, testing portfolios, and performing work that once consumed much of an analyst's day. That changes the skills Bay Street values. It changes how investment professionals are trained, and it changes what investors should expect from the people managing or advising them on their money. But widespread access to AI also makes one distinction even more important. Information isn't judgment. The winners will be investors and advisors who know how to combine increasingly powerful machines with disciplined investment thinking, appropriate risk-taking, and an understanding of the people they serve. Now you're on the money. I'm Michael Hainsworth. Thanks for joining us.